Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ukraine Media Center. I'd like to remind you that we are supported by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and Ministry of Internal Affairs. And many thanks to Skyloft Hotel for hosting us, accommodating us. And now in our briefing, we have Deputy Chief of Staff of the Land Forces of Ukraine, Brigadier General Oleksandr Hruzevych. Alexander, could you please tell us what's happening about the defense of Kyiv and Kyiv province? You're welcome. First of all, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank you for coming to our briefing. Thank you for your support in this information space, information aspect, because, you know, as they say it, whoever owns information owns the world. So when you provide information to civilians and military alike, that's very much needed, and it's also part of your contribution to our joint victory. Currently, the troops defending Kyiv carry out active operations to liberate our cities and towns in Kyiv Oblast. Within the last couple of days, we liberated and checked a number of towns and villages. To complete control of those, you've probably already seen what remained there after the occupiers. We see it in Irpin, we see it in Buzova, we see it in other villages and towns. The enemy destroys our infrastructure, sets explosions to wherever they can, and you see the consequences of that destruction, that the Russian world, as they call it, we see it with our own eyes. Still, the Russian propaganda tells stories now about withdrawal, allegedly planned withdrawal of their troops from Kyiv and Chernihiv. But I have to tell you that, yes, they have been withdrawing some part of their troops, or they try to withdraw them, but the enemy has changed their, well, not their strategy, but they changed their strategic goals. They try to concentrate all their forces to the east, to bring their troops to administrative boundaries of Donetsk and Luhansk provinces. But I'd like to tell you that actions taken by Ukrainian military and other components of defense forces forced Russians to do it due to heroic actions by our military and skills of our commanders. We have completely destroyed the enemy's plans, and currently in Kyiv Oblast, Kyiv province, the enemy has completely lost their offensive potential. In some areas, they try to switch to defense to maintain their positions, those locations that they took before. But the commanders of Kyiv Defense Forces conduct active actions and prevent Russians from maintaining it. I believe that in the nearest future we will get some good news, believe me. Actions are being taken. I know that you worry a lot about Bucha, about Vyshhorod. Vyshhorod is already ours. We have taken control of Vyshhorod, and soon, as I said, we are to get some very, very good news. I would not like to jump ahead too much, but in a day or two, we'll see some great picture, and we'll further develop our success. But at the same time, we should not forget about the enemy's forces, because currently there is a lot of those around Kyiv to make some strike or to try and strike in response. First of all, I mean rocket strikes, which continue every day, and every day they increase and they hit both civilian and military infrastructure alike. And because of that, civilians suffer and our whole infrastructure suffers. Currently, our air defense troops are ready for that. Most of their rockets are downed. The enemy's aviation is afraid of getting into the zone covered by our defense forces. They just make some untargeted strikes, but some of them hit buildings, and unfortunately we have some victims among civilians, peaceful civilians. So the enemy will continue with this tactic in the nearest future. Commanders take proper action to minimize the impact of those rocket strikes, and as I already said during my previous briefings, we are taking action to push the enemy as far away as possible from Kyiv and Kyiv province to deprive them of their ability to shell with artillery, with multiple launch rocket systems, and when they make rocket strikes, we'll counter them with our air defense. Now, I can say for sure that we'll not see enemies in Kyiv. Don't worry. Now, about Kyiv Oblast, Kyiv province, I will repeat that we have been taking active measures to liberate our villages and towns, and very soon we'll share results with you. Believe me, there will be very good results. We have already achieved success in many directions. I just don't want to jump ahead too much. Because, you know, to take something is one thing, but to take and maintain control of a town or something is another thing. So when we have control of something, we'll share it with you. I know you know, you'll probably learn about it earlier than I will. And finally, I'd like to thank everybody for this support you provide in the information space. And I'd like to thank all components of our defense force, not only our military, our armed forces who have been heroically fighting for our liberty, but also all the other components of defense forces, including territorial defense, police, border guards, everybody, because due to their efforts, we will achieve our victory. That's basically it. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer those. Thank you, Oleksandr, for this very important information. Dear friends, dear journalists, you're welcome. You can ask your questions. Please use the microphone.
Specifically about Irpin and what's been happening there, and whether the Russians have been pushed out completely. And whether you're genuinely seeing what Putin said would happen, which is a true concentration now on Donbass and moving away from Kiev. Do you believe that?
Currently, at least overnight, over 700 vehicles moved towards Ivankiv and Belarusian border. That's 3 to 4 battalion tactical groups. They are moving deeper there. We are considering two options. Either they regroup their troops and re-target them, but you know, taking into account the whole dynamics of what's going on across Ukraine, there is a high probability that those armored vehicles that move there, they will reappear in Donbass. Because, as I already said, it's not just in Kyiv province, but in almost all areas, the enemy has exhausted their offensive potential. They have to replenish their forces to continue any offensive action. So we believe that, in our view and in my personal view, to that end, they're regrouping their troops and moving their troops and forces. But those forces that stay around Kyiv are still quite significant. We should not be afraid of anything. We should not be scared, but they can cause some damage. As they say in my place in Zhytomyr province, they can spoil our mood a bit, but we are ready for that because we are on our own land. We have been very well motivated, and currently as a result of active actions. I said it in our last briefing, and today we have completely covered logistical support from 3 directions, and now there is the last direction where we are working to stop logistical support for the enemy. And you understand, when there is a soldier in the trenches who has no food, no water, no armor, no logistics, in 1 day or 2 days or a week, that soldier will become not so brave anymore. We all know it. So we have been working on that. So we consider 2 options, and we are and we are ready for both. But the worst one and the best one for us. But based on the situation we see on the ground, and based on the event, the developments, and based on our action, as I already said, in the nearest future we'll get some very nice news. Any more questions? There was also about Irpin. Well, Irpin has been completely under control, and the rest of villages and towns around Irpin will be soon. You know, it's been controlled. Yes, there is shelling. There are some threats, not so frequent, not so often, but there is some shelling sometimes. Probably that's why still civilians are not allowed to return to Irpin, because there is some danger of shelling yet. You know that the most valuable thing is life, be it life of our military or life of our civilians. It's about people's lives. That's the most valuable thing we have. So to ensure security, safety of our civilians, we temporarily do not issue a permission for them to return. Especially that, you know, I'm not to hide it from you. There is a lot of traps the enemy has left there. Yesterday alone, we removed 7 minefields, strong minefields in 3 towns and villages. And now we have been working with our minesweepers, and those from the State Emergency Service have been working on demining those liberated towns and villages. Question?
One smaller, anti-tank mine or anti-personal mine?
Usually there are mixed minefields, and there are lots of surprises. There was anti-tank and landmines and improvised explosive devices too, IEDs, which can be made from everything. And there are minefields and traps on key routes everywhere, I would say.
As far as you can see, the tactics of Russian on the ground are changing in this day. I mean, are they learning from the mistake of the first weeks of war, and are they adapting their way to fight on the ground at your in order to face your unit, your light infantry unit?
Безумовно, тактика.
Of course, the tactics of the enemy have changed. Now they prefer, as they say, long-range firing. They try to avoid direct engagement. They try to strike the arrears, and before that there is always a strong artillery fire. Strong artillery, heavy artillery shelling. About tactics, tactical action, as I already said, they have been a bit demoralized. I will provide one example. Yesterday, we arrested the driver of their armored vehicle, who surrendered in one of the villages. And he said, my tank has been broken and I don't know where to go. And their troops left, and we also caught their artillery guy who was wounded, but he was adjusting their fire almost to his own place, calling for artillery fire to his own place. So it depends on the psychological condition, and we should take it into account. The enemy is strong. They are strong, they're well prepared. So, you know, sometimes people just say various things, but I would say the enemy is still strong and quite dangerous. Again, about their tactics, as I already said, they change their tactics. They are adapting, adjusting, but we are also learning. We are also learning too. Currently, there have already been certain statements whereby they say that they underestimated the Ukrainian army, and as a result, they lost in the first week, and now they are changing, they are concentrating their troops, they are mobilizing additional resources, as I mentioned at the previous press conference, and they mobilize them from former Soviet Union countries, because a lot of Russians refuse to go there. Many soldiers who are captured by us, many prisoners of war, say openly that we have been sent. We were told it differently. We were told that we would go for exercises, for training and so on, but we were sent as cannon fodder. I quoted in Russian, we were all in military exercises, we didn't know, we were ordered and we came here. But when we capture their reconnaissance guys, their officers, based on their testimonies, it's completely different. They were well prepared, well trained, and everybody knew clearly where they would go. Their only mistake was they underestimated our people, our nation, nor our army. They thought that it would be easier for them, and then they would easy in a week. Any more questions? If a brief question, I heard either from the general staff or somebody that from Brovary, direction from Brovary area, something continued there. Can you comment on that? In Brovary and very soon they will be surrounded. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Oleksandr. Thank you for finding time and joining us here. Thank you for this information. Thank you, dear friends. We work for you. Watch our announcements. Now we are developing our schedule for tomorrow. We'll inform you. So stay in touch. Thank you, and goodbye.